Hey everyone, ALA here to open today's new episode. This is a continuation of our chat about the Fertility Festival, so if you missed the last one, please go back and check it out, unless you don't mind being a little bit thrown into the middle of a conversation. That's on you, it's your life. But in general, we go ahead and wrap up that conversation here. Please enjoy.
Let me rewind it then back to our, main topic of the fertility festival because the food, okay, the food. It's like,
I just feel like festivals in Japan have some of the
yes,
best food
yes,
ever.
that's what
And
I'm
it's
trying to say.
such good
That's what I'm.
street food.
Oh, it's just like you can get okonomiyaki, you can get takoyaki, you
No,
can
what threw
get
me
like
off
little
is like the
sensei things
American
with eggs.
festival foods that they have. Like they have the tornado potatoes, and
They
then they
did. You're
they
right.
have some of like the deep fried foods that we have, and I'm just like, of all the things for us to bring to you guys, we like
Bruh,
fried
but like,
Oreos,
hold up.
but also fried Oreos are so good.
Let let me rewind that though, because this is where just a little bit of my thirst came out. Let me just be honest. I'm
Oh,
gonna be
here we go.
completely honest. On occasion, you would get a very attractive vendor, like
Hmm.
just sit up there cooking that food, and that was when I realized, yo, I'm gonna need a man that can cook. Hold up,
Hmm.
like. So I was just like, it was nice to, not that you could really flirt with them, but just to watch this fine specimen cook something for you, give them the money, and then walk away being
Oh,
like, yo,
that didn't
that's
stop me from
cool.
flirting with
No,
like
you
you guys.
you're
So.
fine. But I'm gonna walk away with this phallus shaped food and eat it over here because, I can't be connecting my thirst for you with this thing I'm finna eat. So I'm gonna go over here,
You're
eat
funny.
this. I kept them separate. Again, like you were in a space where you're eating things and it looks suggestive. So I'm not
Hmm.
trying to give that signal off either. Like
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
doing it for the gram. So not that I had Instagram at the time,
Wow.
but yeah, it's just that was the only time I would allow that little bit of thirst to come out where I'm like, wow, this dude is fine. All right, give me this food though.
No, there
Come
was a
on
guy
now,
who was
now.
flirting with me, and usually I'm like really oblivious, but that day I wasn't, so I was like, I don't know how to flirt very well. I'll make attempts. So I had a good conversation, but then afterward, he was just like, "Yeah, I gotta go meet my girlfriend later," and I'm like, "Okay, you have fun with that." Like I just wanted to have a nice flirtation, you know.
I mean,
And then he said
I think
girlfriend, so I was like, nope, I'm bailing because I know some people are flirty by nature, but like I'm not gonna be that person.
right. I mean, no, whenever you enter into a flirtationship, like it should be completely understood that that's all it's going to be.
Yep.
And I've had oh, gosh, I don't know if I've had any successful flirtationships because usually, like, when I'm starting to be like, okay, I'm getting kind of bored with this person, they're like just starting to catch feelings. I'm not feeling you like that. I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Burn.
Like, I knew how I felt going into this, so I'm sorry that you got confused. But I wish that you had a chance to go though. I do feel like it's an experience that every foreigner, if they're going to be there, ought to have. And
Hmm.
I mean, there are so many experiences when you go abroad where you talk yourself into it or talk yourself out of it. And I get why this is an experience why you would talk yourself out of it. I do get why, but it's just like
Yeah.
if you're going to be in the country and have your feet on the soil, it's just like there's just certain things that it's fun to try. It's kind of like when we talked about like doing omiai, like, oh, I wish you'd had, kind of thing. So at least it'd be like an experience that we'd have.
Yeah.
Like it's not, it's done and done now, but it's just like what if, kind of thing. So,
What if
oh man, the food was so good.
I would total well, I can't say I would actually go to that festival to be honest with you, but um I do wish I could talk about it without giggling like a 5-year-old. So there's
I mean, I don't know. I felt like a really good place to go be immature for a second. It's just kind
that.
of understood, I guess.
Hmm.
But again, without disrespecting the culture.
Yes.
And I will definitely say that even though the foreigners kind of dance around each other, like we were all very cognizant of not being there to step all over the culture. Like I didn't see any
Exactly.
foreigners like twerking in front of a shrine. I didn't see any guys like trying to again hit on girls. Like I didn't see any of that. Like it was just like a at least from my standpoint and experience, and understood
Hmm.
reverence for what was going on without disrespecting what was going on. And I really appreciate that. I really do.
Hmm. I do. I mean, I think I said before that America is a very Puritan country, and
Yeah.
can't say that I too am not part of that because
Mhm.
um, that's just kind of how you're raised. And even with all
Mm.
like the dirty jokes and the whole girls gone wild thing and all this other stuff that we have going on here, we're still very like repressed sexually.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's an awesome point.
Thank you. I told you
So
sometimes I be thinking.
it's just for me it's kind of sad though because I'm considering how I was raised.
Hmm.
Sex in and of itself is for procreation. And so
Yeah.
not always acknowledging that it's also for enjoyment. And in a sense it's only for enjoyment between a, bonded couple by marriage.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like that's what kind of blocked me a little bit because it's a family event and it's just like to some extent I've been kind of repetitively shown that as a single woman I'm not going to get to have this yet. So it's just like it's always been a kind of push and pull for me because I'm like I guess sex just does that to people though because you're either raised to know that it's just for procreation
Hmm.
or
But
you
I feel
see
like that's
people
a
around you
lot of
like misusing sex.
westernized thinking.
Yeah, it
Because
really is.
before colonization, like a lot of people were more, how can I say, it? They weren't as fundamentalist about sex.
Yeah.
Um, and so for us as Christians, it's still very, oh no, you can only have sex with your husband. And like you said, it's only for having
Yeah.
babies. And I'm like, did any of you read Song of Songs? Because no. Like, he was very into his wife. Like, very into
Yeah.
her. And she was very into him, you know? Because
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
relationship and it's something that's part of a relationship. And I remember I had a pastor who said sex is between you, your spouse, and God. And I'm like, I realize God created us now. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not at the point where I can understand why God would be at the center of that, like at the time, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but now, okay, I get it, because God is in all things. God is in how you love yourself. God is in how you love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
God is in how you love God. God is in how you love your spouse, and that includes
Mm.
sex. um,
I mean, but do you think the Christian church, at least from your standpoint, still has a very immature approach to
which
sex
Christian
talk?
church? Because
I
that
mean,
still goes back
well,
to the
no,
whole
no.
colonialism thing.
I don't know, like maybe where you're personally attending now, or maybe just your past experiences with
Mhm.
churches, like when it comes to that. Because like for me, and this will probably be another podcast in general, like
Yeah.
because I attended church in Japan where everything was like very much dichotomized between the sexes. Like there was female Bible study and male Bible study, but we can't study together. Like it was just like, what? Like
Mm,
and then if a
I
girl shows up at the male Bible study, she's thirsty because like she's just
yeah.
trying to hit on the guys. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like I was just like, what is happening here? So, what's your standpoint?
I they I'm sorry, it's still the colonialism thing. Like the US and by
Hmm.
proxy a lot of Western societies that are Christian
Hmm.
still have that whole kind of, oh no, we don't talk about that. We don't, no, 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 we don't talk about that. And I'm like, you guys, you wouldn't exist if somebody wasn't getting busy. So we need to find a way
Right?
to talk about this maturely.
Right?
She says that she giggled for most of this podcast. But
Right? Like somebody stroked that wooden phallus. Like
nope,
let's just
nope,
be
nope,
honest.
nope. Still not there. Still not there. That's why.
Yes. But there it is.
Shut up. So,
there
but the
lies
thing,
there
the
lies the sting.
the irony. You want to know what the irony is actually? Because like there are certain things that the Bible does and doesn't say about sex, but what matters
Mhm.
is translation and how it was
Mhm.
translated.
Right.
Because celibacy wasn't particularly a thing until more
Mhm.
people started believing in the end times. So
Mm.
that's one. Also, a lot of people don't seem to understand that you should want to get down, with your spouse.
Mhm.
Because that's, if you see animals, they're out there living
Mhm.
their lives, getting
Mhm.
busy, not getting busy, doing their thing, and we don't look at it like, ew, they're having sex. We just look at it as a fundamental part of existence. But then somehow
Right.
when it comes to humans, it's, oh no, can't talk about that. Oh no, can't do that. Oh no, I shouldn't enjoy, having a sexual relationship with my spouse. And so
Mhm.
I think that's kind of why when we come back to even like the Honen Matsuri, like for me, I giggle like a child at the idea of it. And yeah, I could tell dirty jokes and not think of anything. Like I have no sexual thoughts, I have no sexual feelings, like there's nothing. But I could tell dirty jokes all day and people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that." I'm like, "Me too." You know, I think we associate sex with lust too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, lust is part of sex, but love
Well,
is
right,
part of
right.
sex. And I think it depends on what we're making room for. Because also,
Mhm.
remember how, like, for the early Christians, they were like, oh, Jesus is definitely coming soon. So people
Mhm.
just weren't having sex.
Right.
They were like, nope, nope, forget your worldly responsibilities, you should definitely lean more toward being celibate, especially because like a lot of this came from Paul, who I have mixed feelings about, and that's a different podcast altogether. And then um the at one point the church was just like, let's just not have sex at all because God is going to be coming soon and we're going to end up being taken up to heaven, and that didn't happen.
Right. But that's the sad part too. I think that particular approach to it is what has caused all these branches of perversion. Like that's why there's all
Mm,
these deviant sort of people who are like, I only like
mhm,
children. I only like it's like because like we were not taught to what's the word? Navigate
mhm.
what we are naturally feeling. Like
But you and
God
I
created
talked
sex.
about
Like
this before. Like
yeah,
we talked about how
yeah,
in
no.
Hinduism, at one point, your elders in your family, like for the women, the female elders would take you aside. If you're male, the male elders would take you aside and be like, okay, so first time you have sex, you should touch this person here, or kiss them here, or like caress them here, or do this thing, wear these body
Mhm.
oils, um, make sure you wash yourself in a certain
Yeah,
way. Like they would just tell you. I
yeah,
don't know how
yeah.
long that lasted. Like I have a very shallow amount of knowledge about Hinduism, just so you know.
Right, right.
But with the early church, like part of it definitely goes, actually not part of it, a lot of it is directly tied to the Roman Catholic Church and St. Augustine, who is influenced by
Mm,
Plato, that if you have any sort of sexual desire, you're rebelling against God and you're being sinful because feeling any sort of sexual feelings is sinful. And the only time you should have sexual desire is when you're going to be, when you are married and you're going to have children.
right.
So I get kind of irritated when people are like, God said this. I'm like, was it God or was it St. Augustine, first of all? So
Right.
just gonna put it out
Ooh.
there. I'm just telling you. And then some other Christian leaders back in the day would be like, you can't feel too passionately about your partner, or you can't even, actually feel love for your partner because that's a sin, because then you're not loving God. So now you have all these
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
weird, stagnant
Well,
ideas about love and sex. And it's so interesting how these ancient Japanese people were like, yeah, fertility, like have babies, have sex together, um, perpetuate our ethnic group, and we're
yeah. It still kind of reminds me though still about how it's part of our human, I think, flaw to
Mhm.
when we don't want to sin, we overcorrect. And that's like one of the reasons why even in say like Judaism, where it's like you've got these, how do you say,
Judaism was still
what
pretty
is it
open
called?
about it. They were like, yeah, go have
I
sex,
mean,
have babies. Do you?
it's open about it, but like go back to the time of like Jesus's time, right? Where he's got all these like men in the church who are just like, oh, he's trying to heal people on the Sabbath. Like they're so like caught in the rules of God that they like
Some,
don't even
but it was
realize that
some
there's
though, not
yeah.
all.
Not all. So it's just like it just reminds me of how like we box ourselves in hopes of not sinning, but we create a sort of bondage which creates a whole other sin because we are not free. Like, does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, I don't know if you know,
Okay.
at one point, the church, like the early church, I think this was
Mhm.
medieval period, maybe, they got so
Mhm.
involved in controlling people's sex lives that they would tell you you can only have sex on specific days. Um, you can't do it in
Wow.
certain positions. The woman should never be on top because then she's trying to be the man, or really trying to be dominant, which they associated with being the man. And then,
Right.
um, you couldn't have sex on Sundays. And then if you're pregnant, can't have sex. You can't use birth control. The men had to eat certain foods. And if you think back on it, some of those it has nothing to do with sex. Anyways, and
No.
then at one point they were like, if you sex between married couples was only legal once per week or a few times a month, because the point was having babies.
Yo, that is metaphorically deep.
And the irony is, thanks to anthropology and sociology and all these people studying history, we know that people had sex, being married and not being married. They
Mm.
had babies regardless because procreation is a natural part of life. But
Yeah.
I don't I don't know, because you and I have also talked about how it seems like a lot of modern Japanese people are kind of disassociating from sex, if that's the word I want to use. Like,
Yeah,
they don't have
that's
time for it. And then when they do have
right.
time for it, it's kind of like, what's the point? You're going to try to get me pregnant with babies. Or
Right.
I'm focusing on my career. Like, this is for any gender. They're like, I'm focusing on my
Right.
career. Like, this is not a thing I'm concerned about or thinking about. And a lot of the parents
Right.
are like, no, you need to have babies. It's important to have babies. So sex is still associated with the point of having babies, and they're not even affected by Christianity.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting you bring that up because that's one thing we have not touched at all during this talk, which probably should have come up,
I mean, you
which
can
is the
you can
birth rate in
edit it
Japan.
how you want, but yeah, their birth rate is
Right.
low. And well,
Yeah.
I'm just worried because you and I've talked about the whole herbivore thing. We've talked about
Yeah.
neats before. Oh wait, some of my friends don't know anything about this. So how about you explain herbivores and I'll explain neats? Because that's tied into this whole
Yeah, because
thing.
I don't know that term you're saying, but I do know herbivores.
A neat? Okay.
Um, for herbivores, so basically there's an understood issue with men right now in Japan where they are so fearful of rejection that they would rather not pursue women as like we've been shown that, men do. just culturally speaking, like especially with Japanese's history, like Japan's history, like with like the
Japanese's
daimyo and
history.
samurai,
Hmm.
and this, well, I won't say soldiers, but like men going to war. Like there was a certain power and strength to feudal Japanese men that has slowly dissipated now that it's a time of peace. Um, so again, with this issue of men not knowing how to pursue women, that means women aren't ending up in relationships and getting married, which places a lot of pressure on the man to start the relationship, to keep the relationship going. And really, it goes farther even than that. Like I've talked to a friend of mine who got married while I was in Japan, and she said that even like sexual pleasure is on the man's shoulders. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
that men shoulder, and instead of
Wait. Can I
yeah,
just add to what you just said? So, you know
go.
how there's a lot of I've had Japanese women tell me like women are expected to be shy in the relationship and that the
Yeah,
men should be the pursuer, he should be the one to kiss her. Um, it even shows up in shoujo manga. Like
yeah.
when, oh, I really like him. Hopefully he'll understand my intentions without me ever saying anything. And then it shows up in the
Yep.
shonen manga for like the boys, in some of them, not too many, of just
Yeah.
like, oh, I think she likes me because she blushed when I accidentally,
Yeah.
touched her hand. And I'm like, you guys are so Victorian.
Yeah. Which has its appeal, and I realize even personally, like how I am,
Hmm.
I don't know. I've been told and perceived as a friendly person, so I have no qualms with initiating talk with people, no
Hmm.
matter their gender.
Hmm.
So that's always been a thing for me because I've had people be like, "Oh, she's flirting with me because she's talking." It's like, no, I'm just like literally just
Yep.
talking to you. Like it's not even that serious. So it's extremely frustrating, and really now as I'm talking it out, I realize how much pressure it puts on men, but it's so much pressure that it makes them just not try. So it ends up being the men going on for a long time being single,
Hmm.
and like in a lot of countries, a man getting older and getting married later in life is not that big a deal, but for women it's like the older she gets and the longer she stays unmarried, the more, in a
Yes.
sense, useless,
Undesirable,
or
quote unquote.
yeah. And I mean, and China, I know they have like actual like really cruel terms for women who are like over a certain age and not married. But if we really go by the scheme of the world, like even go back as far as say period dramas that would call women who are unmarried past the age of 25 old maids, and if they're
Yeah.
over the age of 27, they're thornbacks. Like we get really messed up names for being
Oh
unmarried.
no,
And
they
it's just
used to
like,
call them a Christmas cake in Japan.
what? Why Christmas cake?
I don't, let me look it up. I don't remember. Um, Not
That's
so long
messed
ago,
up.
Japanese women who remain unmarried after the age of 25 were referred to as Christmas cake, a slur comparing them to old holiday pastries that cannot be sold after December 25th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they had other
Yo.
ones too. I just remember the Christmas one. I just couldn't. I had to look it up because I remembered it was Christmas something, and I just couldn't remember what it was. But that's. I mean, but for us, you get called. I've been called a spinster to my face, and I'm like, so? Which point?
I mean, I've seen videos of men being like, "Yo, if she's over 30, don't got no kids, ain't never been married, something's wrong with her." I'm just
Exactly.
like,
Exactly. No, they said like, oh, she's probably old, musty, and crusty.
and I'm just like,
And I'm
as
like,
a woman who's
why?
about to be like, I'm about to be 32. So I'm just like,
Hmm.
I the fact that I'm perceived as broken
Hmm.
just because I've decided to follow a career path, or I'm not in a position or in a place in my life to be settled down. Like sure, that desire is there, but that doesn't make me any less a person or a woman because I don't have these milestones checked off my to-do list. Like you guys, like, so. But yeah, sorry to round back around. Herbivore is, basically this idea that men are not able to pursue women, and
Hmm.
they're equivalated with an animal that cannot hunt, so therefore herbivore. So
Hmm.
that's where that term came from. So I just wanted to round that out
And then the
nicely.
Playboys are called hunters, though. That's That's the
That's
irony.
just that's
And then a
just. Oh
NEET.
wait, what?
NEET just
Yeah, tell me
means,
what this is.
yeah, so not in education, employment, or training. So they use it to describe people who are lazy, or they don't work, or they don't have jobs, or they just stay home all the time playing video games. Um, and the whole idea of needs became so popular. Like I've seen at least three dramas where the main character is a NEET, or they have to interact with one. And
Oh.
they also, some people who are NEETs are also called hikikomori, which is like
That's the term I've heard. That's the term
yeah,
I've heard.
you're a modern day hermit, you don't have any sort of social contact, you don't even leave your house. And it's at the point where it's okay. There are some businesses where the parents will contact the business and get their child, a girlfriend, quote
No.
unquote, who visits him for like an hour or a few hours every day to slowly get him that human contact and draw him out. Some of them are also called sisters, where like they're
Yeah,
supposed to
I've
be
seen the
like a
sister and the
sister to them,
brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's also companies where like they teach the parents basically how to push their child out. And it's like, what if he doesn't have a job? They're like, oh well, he's a grown up. I'm like, dang.
For real though.
That's
Like,
that's yeah. So if you're neat, usually they're between like 15 to like 35, 36, somewhere around there. Um, and what is it? Nito is how you say it in Japanese. But it's written Neet, and
right.
it's usually, they're gamers, hardcore gamers is what they're thought of. It's not specifically just, men. There are a lot of women who are, neat or hikikomori, but a lot of them are male. And
And just
I don't know if
adding
this is
on to
still on
that
the
too,
point of the
though.
fertility festival, but I think
I mean, it's
it,
not, but it kind of is because it is feeding into one of the reasons why the birth rate is low. It is feeding into why the workforce is depleting. It's like
yeah.
there's a lot of reasons
Well,
why
the
the
workforce works you to
population of
death,
Japan.
literally.
Well, that
Yeah.
too. But like, it's so weird too because a lot of people who have these hikikomori tendencies are also associated with otaku behavior. So again, people who are just
Yeah, that's
overly
true.
obsessed with anime. They have like anime body pillows. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's what you're into. But like, if it's like literally stopping you from socializing with other people, you might want to examine that behavior. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there. So, but yeah, like it
But
does
they're
tie in
essentially
because it's like,
marginalized. Like if they become
yeah,
hikikomori, this is a hard word for me. I'm sorry if I say it weird. Or if they become
it's okay.
needs, um, they're just thought of as being like leftovers, kind of. The same way
Yeah,
women are thought of being, well, not the same way, but in a similar way that women are thought of as being
yeah.
leftovers.
So to some extent, you become a failure in your society. You're a perceived failure in your society. And as we've covered in another podcast, that failure is bad. So, um, so,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, this ties into that sense of fertility because if you're not socializing with people, how are you supposed to fertilize other people?
true. But then also a lot of women are working and like
Yeah.
being a stay-at-home mom is a job in general,
Hmm.
right? But to talk
Being a
specifically,
homemaker, period, is a job.
it is, yes. Or sorry, yes, a homemaker in general, because that could be any gender. But Japanese women are like expected by a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people to like have more than one child. You have to have these intricate meals.
Yeah.
You have to cook, you
Lunches.
have to clean, iron clothes, sometimes make clothes, because like when you get pregnant, you're expected to make clothes for your children. And then um, make sure that your kids go to after school tutoring, help them with their homework, um, do a lot of laundry because there's no stupid electric dryer, so you're constantly doing laundry, and
Yeah.
then greet your husband when he gets home, it's just it's a lot. There's a lot that they're expected to do. And they make breakfast and lunch and dinner and snacks and desserts. And they still have
And
to look
dessert.
young and pretty.
You know what I said?
What?
I said, and dessert.
Well, they're supposed to give dessert too. Yeah. So that's
But
work. That's work.
again,
And then the guy has to provide so that she can do all of that. And for him, that's work.
yeah. And again, that ties into what we talked about in our shallow dating pool podcast, right? Like where women are the bottom rung, but that's also how they disappear behind their family. Like
Hmm.
your existence is to make sure your family is okay to the point where you will disappear, your name disappears. And yeah, sure, I'm sure you have your moms that you hang out with, but it's just like your life is your family. And again, like every woman has to, sorry, not even woman, every person has to answer that question for themselves because like
Yeah.
I am the daughter of a woman who literally threw her whole being into being a mother. Like, so I know what it looks like, and it looks like a lot. Like,
Hmm.
she raised 3 kids successfully. That's not an easy thing to do. So,
Hmm.
like, imagine trying to produce these society worthy human beings and honor your family name and like stand up for your company. Like, I'm like, you guys, like, there's a lot on these people's shoulders. And then that's where I turn around and go, but they don't even necessarily have a God with which to throw those burdens to. Like they don't even have that on top of it.
I
Like
mean, if they
I
even
just
want one to begin
yeah,
with,
yeah.
but
So it's just like that's a part of where my heart kind of aches for Japan because I'm just like, oh, that's such a deep topic for me. I can't right now.
I
But
mean,
it's just
we could talk about the U.S. and how there's a lot of similarities.
yeah,
You know?
yo, oh yes. And we're like opposite from them. Like again, we are drowning in our individualism where they are drowning in the team. So it's just like same result because you end up drowning. But we just got there a different way. So
But I do feel
oof.
like at least in Japan, to me,
Mm,
this is how it seemed to me.
mm, mm,
Okay, I can't say this is a reality. This is just how it seemed based on conversations with friends and coworkers and even strangers.
mhm.
Like the ladies at the onsen.
All the ladies.
When they want to have deep conversations all naked and I'm just like looking everywhere but at them. But
But at them.
cuz you know the Captain Morgan lady.
I remember. I
Okay.
remember.
I'm like, girl, that's between you and Jesus. Just close your legs. But
She
anyways,
just wanted to share.
so then to me it seemed like a lot of people thought about getting married specifically for financial reasons,
Mm,
as well as having companionship. So like a lot of guys are like, well, I just want someone to greet me when I'm home and they have dinner ready for me. And I'm like, so you want a servant?
mm,
Because that's what it sounds like. Like, I just want them
mm.
to take care of me and make me feel good. And
So you want your mama? You want your mama?
no, you want a mom that serves you, though, is the thing. And then a lot of women would say, well, I want to have financial stability, you know, especially if I have children. I don't have to worry about how am I going to provide for my children. I'm just like, I understand why you all feel that way, but I still think there's room in life to have more
Hmm.
than that. And again, I don't know if that's patronizing. Maybe it is. But I just feel like it's so interesting how you have this fertility festival, but all this other stuff is happening in your country where people aren't having babies and they're not getting married. And a lot of people are
Well,
actually actively avoiding each other to the point where there's a word for men that hate women. They don't know women. They don't have any female friends. All they know is their mom or any cousins they have, and that's it.
yeah, yeah. See, I feel like that's where the festival's kind of strange for me because it's like a visual representation of what they want, but
Hmm.
no one's doing the inner work to make sure that they have a healthy, fertile family, marriage, whatever, insert into this blank here. Like, we can have
I mean,
this
that's what it
manifestation where we touch this,
seems like.
yeah, like where we touch this phallus and we hope that everything is better. But it's like, if you're not going to spend more time with your family, if you're not going to try and balance your work life with your home life, if you're not going to try and, dote on your spouse, and I mean that for wives and husbands, like, if you're not going to try and do that, it doesn't matter how many, like, I'm sorry, wooden you touch, like, nothing's going to get fixed. Like, that's where it's at, and I'm like, that's the part of it that when I sit with it, I sit with the heaviness of that. I'm like, wow, like, we can try and pretend through tradition and through ritual that things are going to be okay as long as we hope. But what is hope without work?
I mean, we do the same thing here.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know what the takeaway is from that necessarily, guys, but
I don't know if we have one. We're just kind of talking at this point.
There's so much, I think, inner work that people have to do, and that in Japan and America. And that inner work is the hard stuff. Like, that's the hard stuff. And that's where the church, in a sense, in a lot of respects across the world, has failed us. A lot of people aren't doing that inner work, that God work, that just building up and tearing down to become a better human being, to be a better partner, mother, father, insert whatever into the blank here. It goes so much deeper than just a wooden phallus spinning around at a shrine. You need to
we got really depressing really fast.
Go into your heart, do a little couple spins in there.
And then make it rain rice cakes. Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean, this is what we're here for. We're here to sip and trip over some of these kind of interesting topics. This has been, I think, very informative for me and insightful. I did not realize that there was so much behind this. But until we started talking about it, I'm like, wait a second, hold on. Oh, and then there's this, and then there's that. Like, yeah. So I think it was worth it.
So
do you want to maybe send us out then? Like, I think that's
thanks. For letting me try to follow that up. So just to recap, we started off talking about this festival and all of Anna's fun times there.
Woo!
And then somehow got into a tangent about Puritanism in America, thanks to the Catholic Church and colonialism, and then tied it back into how Japan kind of has issues between the sexes. And that's where we left it.
Yeah. So, what did you guys take away from this episode? I mean, have you guys been to that festival? I would love to see people talk about it more, because I feel like most of foreigners' experiences with the festival is really stuck on social media. Like, I should probably actually look through YouTube a bit and see if there's anything there, because I haven't actually really looked up.
There's a lot on Instagram.
Okay.
And then, and then we talked about how if the festival came to the U.S., we'd make it all pervy.
We would. Hands down. Or up. Mostly down.
Cochina. Oh my goodness. I can't with you.
But, I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this chat. I mean, it was a roundabout way to get a little bit meta about some stuff. But there's some fat in here. Like, chew on the fat with us, guys. Like, we be silly, but we be thinking.
We be thinking. Thinking about our conversation overall, it's kind of interesting how we're Christian living in this non-Christian country, but still feeling that element of just, like, God being present.
Well, I honestly think it's what you bring to the table, right? So it's just like, going to Japan, I feel like if you were apathetic about a god, you probably gonna still feel being in Japan will exacerbate that feeling. I honestly feel that way. Okay. But I feel like if you enter in knowing, hey, I know that I have a relationship with God, I'm taking him with me, then he's going to be with you everywhere you go. So I felt like being in Japan further solidified my walk with God, because it forced me, like, I couldn't go fellowship with everybody, right? Like, not everyone knew who God was.
Exactly.
Like, the Christian population in Japan is like
It's
less than
small.
1%.
Yeah.
So, like, even when I did find a home church, it was still a lot of baby Christians, even. So, I had to go into that spot being like, I'm learning who I am through Christ, so I'm not going to forget who I am. I've already collected these experiences, and now I'm going to go collect more. And so I hope and pray that the people who knew me, um, everyone that knew me, like, personally knew that I was Christian, and, like, they would ask questions. They felt comfortable to ask me questions without feeling judged, or, oh,
Yeah.
you're not trying to convert me. It's like, no, I'm not. I know that literally trying to convert you will push you further away. Like, all I can do right now is love you, so let me just try to do that at this festival.
I was gonna say.
Want a sausage?